Welcome. You're watching Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Cristina Garcia. She is a member of the California State Assembly, and I want to speak with you about one of the bills you introduced this year. It was signed by the governor, and I must say I did have a rooting interest in this bill. I try to stay non-political, nonpartisan, but my daughter was victimized through a series of harassing text messages that were coming in, and we as parents were trying to stop it from happening live. It became very difficult. When we contacted the school, there was a question about whether the school would even assume jurisdiction over the matter because the texting was happening off campus. The texter was off campus, my daughter was off campus. AB 256 deals with that very question.
I think your story is very common and becoming more and more common with our families in the community, right. And kind of how do we stay on top of as technology move forwards. And bullying has been around since forever,
yes,
right?
Forever,
we were kids,
right.
But it's a different setting now with technology, and so parents are having to adjust to that, and schools are also. So this bill gives schools the jurisdiction if they choose to. It states clearly that if for some reason they feel that the student can no longer learn, right. That the learning environment has been compromised, they have the authority to get involved and discipline the students however they see fit. So whether it's,
right.
How to be a better peer, including even if you want to move as far as expulsion of the student.
Interesting.
But there's a wide array of what they could do.
So the bill does not require districts to assume jurisdiction in the scenario, for example, that we faced.
Right.
But it allows them
yes.
to accept jurisdiction.
And a lot of schools have been really hesitant because clearly before, when it was physical bullying, it had
right.
to be on campus, and the laws were very clear that it had to be on campus. And so they didn't want to get sued.
Sure.
So they had to be careful. So this allows them to have jurisdiction, but it doesn't mandate it because it also, we want to prevent lawsuits and give some flexibility to the schools, right, and to the parents about how to move forward.
And I have to tell you, it is remarkable what children will say to other children via text that they would never say in person. And what's most scary from what I saw with my daughter, it wasn't even the words, it was the emoticons. It was the angry face, that just caused her to become completely spooked. And mind you, she's not a shrinking violet, but I literally saw her become unglued as these harassing text messages were coming in.
I think the difference is when someone's in front of you, you might say one or two
right.
things and you walk away because you know that at some point you might get to the point where you push the person into violence, and maybe you want to prevent that. You don't want to,
right.
you don't want other folks to notice what's going on. But via text, no one else is noticing. You can send it over and over again,
right.
and it continues, and it's at a whole nother level that we've never had access to. And I always tell parents, think about it this way. When have you sent a text message where you regret it later on?
Of course.
And we are adults who have a certain level of consciousness, right? And it's like, maybe that's wrong, but we still screw it up. I've done it.
Oh, yes.
And so now imagine these kids who are still developing their conscious level of right and wrong.
I mean, their brains are not where they should be in terms of judgment. And I've said this on our program, we have turned off our daughter's ability to send and receive text. That was partially her request, and I'm on this campaign to have parents turn off texting for their kids. Why do they need to text? I mean, honestly, emails are fine.
I think and I think you're doing what a parent should do. Get involved and you set
right.
up your own parameters and your own boundaries with your kids, right? The next step has to be, how do we create a group of young folks who are going to be able to navigate. I'm not going to be able to get rid of all of bullying ever. I think it's been around for all ages. But how do we have them navigate the new way that it happens? And how do we create a consciousness amongst our youth not to cyberbully each other, to create a certain community?
And on top of it, again, clearly I have an opinion on this, but why don't you just pick up the phone and call your friend? Or why don't you go across the hall? I mean, it's amazing. I see some kids, if there was a PhD offered in texting, this country would be filled.
Wow.
It's almost disturbing to me how much texting goes on.
And I'm probably just as guilty
as
an 11-year-old kid of sending a massive amount of text. But I think, and I think as a parent, we decide what's right and wrong for our kids, and so parents have to have those discussions. I think for too long we haven't been discussing it. We've been turning our heads to this idea. It's like, oh, bullying has happened to everyone. We've done it. It's like, but we didn't live through technology, and it's different these days. And a lot of folks are saying, oh, cyberbullying is not the problem. And if you're doing that, you're burying your head under the sand, and you're gonna let things get out of control. And I think it's not until you have these personal moments, but these personal moments, you get to the point where your kid commits suicide, because we're seeing that more and more these days. days.
This is not anecdotal. I mean, we have seen stories of children being cyberbullied, being so unable to handle the pressure of the pain, and they commit suicide.
Yeah.
And there's been no interaction personally. It's all been via technology.
Yeah, so it's hard. And for teachers out there, I think, being extra wary when we're seeing that, if you see something on, and asking those children and letting them know that you are someone that's there to help them, I think, because sometimes the student doesn't know who to turn to for help. Are you going to help? And now this teacher can say, you know what, we have jurisdiction. I could petition the school to get involved. Before we couldn't. And so I think that this is the other part of this piece, that it's important for that trust, that my teacher is going to act and something's going to happen on my behalf.
Have school districts taken to your bill kindly, or have they been nervous?
Yeah, I obviously maybe my staff filter stuff, but I've had mostly positive.
Okay.
I have the Downey Unified, which has a campaign anti-bullying. They do a whole bunch of different things. They do them things where it's how do we as a school react better? How do our teachers react better? How do we teach our students who are being bullied to help themselves? How do we teach the students who are watching it to help other students? And then how do we deal with the bullier, and how do we help them create a better conscience in them? And so they're very involved, and so they're very excited about this jurisdiction law.
I want to ask you about what your staff or you have heard about the rollout of the Affordable Care Act and Covered California.
So we've had over 10 different workshops in the district with community members, where it's generic, where it's targeted to seniors, targeted to the RHN community, multilingual, just trying to have different organizations come and participate with us. And we've heard a couple of things that are troubling. One, a lot of folks are kind of waiting to see, and they haven't talked to anyone. And so I feel like if you can't go online, call the 1-800 number, start getting informed.
But here in California,
it's different than in the rest of the country. Start getting involved. Has it been perfect in California? No, but it's been much better than what we're hearing.
I mean, Covered California has been a success story. I mean, if you take the time to really delve into the national coverage, you do see California, Kentucky of all places, Washington State. The one troubling area in California as it relates to signups is the low level of participation amongst Latinos. Latinos represent half of the uninsured in our state, but the early numbers suggest that only 3% of the folks that have signed up for Covered California are of Latino descent.
I think so. I have actually one of the highest concentrations, if not the highest concentration, of Latinos in the country, in my district.
Okay, so
actually in my hometown in particular, which is why I've been so aggressive about having all these workshops, and we continue to have workshops Nexus with small businesses because of that, and trying to encourage folks. I mean, the big part of it is oftentimes you haven't been eligible for anything, and you've been here for so long, and so it's like sometimes it's even just believing that, okay, this is going to work for me. And there's no strings attached, and I have to do this, and so it's that hand holding that we have to do. And I think the other piece is how we reach out to the kids of parents, because my mom is going to wait to see what I tell her to do, and she's still going to be skeptical. But if I lead her through the process, she's going to do it. So we need to start reaching out to those young folks, one, to enroll them, and two, to help enroll their families.
One of the areas where Covered California has received criticism is its inability to ramp up what we know as navigators, those folks that are supposed to help individuals march through the process. We haven't had enough online. I believe they're now coming online. What's happening with navigators, and specifically navigators that can help those who may be Spanish dominant?
So we've definitely, there's been that issue, but more staff is coming on board now. They're trying to speed up that process, and so we're trying to catch up. I mean, part of it is we're rolling out something massive, and so we're learning along the way, so we're definitely trying to ramp that up. Two things are happening. One, we are hiring more staff, but the public needs to know that anyone that tries to charge you to be a navigator, it's illegal.
To use a navigator.
It's illegal. Navigators are supposed to be free, and they're certified, and they're trained. And that was part of the backlog. Initially, we were in that certification process for navigators. We're finally catching up some. But even if you don't find a navigator, call your assemblywoman, your assembly member.
Her name is Cristina Garcia, if you live in Bell and other areas. I want to thank you for joining us. Will you come back?
I will, definitely. Thank you.
Her name is Cristina Garcia. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition. Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Paul Audley. He is the president of Film LA, which is what?
Film LA is the film office and sort of the film commission, really, in the region in Los Angeles. So we represent a number of cities, the county, and certainly the city of Los Angeles, several school districts, and the Angeles National Forest for filming.
Which is pretty terrific. I have to tell you that I'm a bit biased on this because I believe that having production in Los Angeles is a plus. And I have lived in neighborhoods where filming was quite prominent. I lived across from a golf course for a while, Rancho Park, and I would get these notices from Film LA, and I would be appreciative because I liked that I got the notices, and I liked that people were working, but I think I'm in the minority.
I don't think you're in the minority. We actually get very, very few people pushing back on filming.
Well, that's good to hear.
We tend to see, even in a neighborhood where someone's particularly loud,
right.
The rest of the neighborhood continues to fill out the surveys saying, yes, please continue filming. I think people in the region understand that this is a massive economic driver for the region and support it for that.
And please be as specific as possible when you say that the entertainment industry is that economic catalyst, that economic driver.
Well, entertainment is the largest economic cluster for the region. It has the highest impact. It's about 500,000 jobs in the region that are involved in filmmaking and television. And so it does create a massive amount of work and economic benefit, about $15 billion a year spent here.
Does that include ancillary? For example, the dry cleaners, the restaurants, whatever it may be?
Well, for every film job, there are 2.7 other jobs like those that depend on the film industry to survive. So all total, it's about 500,000 folks that depend on this industry being present in California.
At the same time, many of us lament the fact that we are seeing filming, and I use that term very broadly, that could include films, television, commercials, new media. They're running away. Runaway production. It's kind of the cliche of the day.
It is, and it's been going on for a while. Unfortunately, the state of California has sat by since this started in about 1997, with Vancouver being the first to really compete to take jobs from California, and the state watched as other states, now more than 40 states in this country alone, are using tax incentives to draw business away from California.
And what's so interesting is many of those states are unlikely suspects. Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia. I mean, you'd expect New York, maybe New Jersey, Connecticut, but Louisiana. And Louisiana is one of the most successful, as I understand it.
It is one of the most successful, and part of the reason is they don't have a cap. So anyone who wants to film there, they'll give them money to come. But what happened was all these other states, in looking for good, high-paying wages for their residents, saw the film industry for what it is, which is a very valuable employer. And they've been drawing it out of the state ever since. I mean, we've gone from being the film capital, really, now to not making as many feature films as the rest of the world. We've lost the edge, and we need to compete better for that business.
When we had a governor who was a movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can say a lot of things about him, but he was a booster for the entertainment industry. And despite tremendous opposition, he was able to push through an incentive program. Some called it corporate welfare, others saw it as a benefit to all levels, above and below the line, as they say. Talk to us about that program.
Sure. So the state of California now has finally gotten into the war for this business with a very modest program. California's, it's only for below the line, which means not the big stars, not the big directors, not the big producers, but those people who work on the cast and crew at the lower levels of the wage scale. So that budget now has a tax incentive that can be used. It's $100 million a year. The problem with it is it's very limited.
Cap.
That's the cap.
So it's not as if your film, the budget is $100 million, that you can apply for it in total.
It's $100 million available in the state of California to be given in tax credits.
That's a pittance.
It's a total pittance, especially when you look at a state like Louisiana with no cap and a state like New York with $420 million and available to a broader array of programs and films. The result is we've seen Mayor Bloomberg and Senator Schumer bragging
both from New York,
bragging about how many jobs they've taken from California. To me, and I'm from the Northeast originally, but for me, any other state that's bragging about stealing my jobs makes me want to fight. And the surprising thing to me has been California's willingness to let these jobs leave over the years.
I think part of the challenge is that the state is so large geographically as well as economically that many folks who represent California in areas other than the South really don't comprehend the importance and kind of see the South as, oh, it's the Hollywood heavyweights and it's corporate welfare. And
well, and there's a political divide in California as well between those who might see the industry as more liberal and therefore not to be supported. But the truth is, we work with film offices all over the state. And the film office in Lake Tahoe talks about how they used to have 3 or 4 films a year, many television shows and several commercials. Lately, they're only seeing a couple of commercials a year, and it's had an economic impact in that county. Another county told us that their hardware store survives because filming comes to the north, and that is what puts that store into the black. Without it, that county hasn't got one. So it's a statewide issue, and certainly for the tax revenue, it's a statewide issue.
I need to talk about the 800-pound gorilla elephant, whatever cliche you want to use, it's sitting in the room, and that is the investigation, as we speak today, of State Senator Ron Calderon. One may not realize, but he was heavily involved in working with the entertainment industry and trying to build jobs through the entertainment industry. But as alleged, and these are all allegations, he may have been on the dole, on the dime, and it has caused a lot of pain and suffering for those that support tax incentives. There's discussion about just eliminating them because they're seen as dirty, as corrupt.
I think there's a couple of points, and the first is, a lot of people have expressed, and I came out immediately and said how disappointed I was that the FBI chose to create a fake movie company as the place to try to trip up Senator Calderon. There was no actual film industry involved in this at all. It was the federal government involved in this bribery attempt. And the truth of it is, even if Senator Calderon had been involved in it, there was no change that was requested as a result of it.
He wasn't effective as someone who got bribed, allegedly.
And this program has extraordinary controls on it and the kind of accounting that has to be turned in, the people who review it. It's a very clean program, and it's proving in the state that it produces more revenue per dollar than it gives away. So it's a valuable program. I think many people are looking to see what their constituents believe as a result of the Calderon investigation.
But here's the challenge. The program that made it through during the Schwarzenegger years has a sunset on it. As I understand, that sunset is 2016. And so now, 2013-14 is the time to either renew or the legislation will sunset. I mean, your timing's tight and tough.
It's very tight. It's thankfully a little better economy. But the truth of it is, from what we've seen over the years of the amount of production we've lost, and now critically, we're losing vendors and crew to other states. They're permanently picking up from LA, moving to Georgia, moving to New York. We lose the edge if we do not get in and compete. And this is a signature industry in addition to an economic powerhouse for California. If you don't fight for it now, it's going to be gone, and we will become permanently second tier for production.
So what can be done? It really is. I mean, we are at a critical tipping point. And I firmly believe that. I try not to be a partisan, but that's what I see.
It is a tipping point. In my opinion, this is the year that the state must step up. So people need to tell their legislators they believe in this industry and need it to be supported. We're working not only with other film offices throughout the state, but also with an alliance of industries, plural, that are involved in the entertainment industry to try and put some public education out there this year as a new bill moves forward. There are a couple of blank bills right now that will come up in January, February to be filled in with details. But to win the war, California has to get in seriously for several years with a serious amount of money and a broader-based incentive. And I believe that the truth of the matter will be that many, many of the competitors we have now will fall away as a result of California truly competing. They want to stay here.
His name is Paul Audley. He is the president of Film LA. If you want to learn more about that organization, you can sign on to filmla.com. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition. Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. It is my honor to introduce you to June Lockhart. Surely you know her from so many iconic series, including Lassie, Petticoat Junction, General Hospital, Quincy M.E., and recently a national publication asked, "Is June Lockhart lost in space?" A play on words from one of your most iconic performances in Lost in Space. Why did they ask that, Ms. Lockhart?
Well, they asked it because of my involvement with NASA. And since about 1970, when I was first able to interview 3 astronauts who had made the second moon walk and I was calling the Rose Parade, and they were the Grand Marshals.
Right.
And so I think it was Bean and Conrad.
I think it's an understatement to say that you're involved in NASA.
Oh, very much.
You have been so uniformly committed to this organization. It's just hard to deny the level of your commitment. You know, I think back to even earlier in your career, you were Miss Western Airlines.
Oh, yes. I love aviation,
so,
of course.
I mean, at that time, did you ever think when you were Miss Western Airlines that you would really part of your public persona would be about the pursuit of space?
Well, it's always intrigued me, I must say. And so
but why?
You know,
why does it intrigue you? What
it's
is
the magic that's out there, the mystery. And so I go to JPL whenever we have a landing, or the Mars rover,
of course,
or the Saturn. When we flew by Saturn. As a matter of fact, there's a fantastic picture out now in the New York Times of Saturn, and.
But I think
anyway,
please.
All right. And so I'm invited to these extraordinary opportunities. And, you know, like, for instance, when the Mars rover, when Curiosity landed, and all these people are there, and you're with all the engineers, and some of them are well on in years, and they've been working on this all their lives. And you wait that 15 minutes while you're waiting to know if the parachute is deployed and it has landed. And when you know it's down, and the absolute eruption of joy, happiness, screaming, yelling, hugs, laughter, tears. I mean, it is the most extraordinary emotional wallop. And you know that this, in this case, Curiosity rover, will be finding out about what went on Mars billions of years ago.
I get it. I feel it. And what I also understand, and that's thanks to you, is that of course NASA, of course JPL is helping us explore space. But NASA and the work that this organization does has done so much more for humanity.
And it's not really known because initially, as a government agency, they weren't able to publicize the fact that they were working on pacemakers, assisted gaits. There were
laser angioplasty.
Absolutely. For people who want to drive and don't have use of their limbs, they've done all that.
Vehicle controllers.
Specialized wheelchairs. Your glasses don't scratch because of scratch-resistant glasses that were created by NASA. You wear athletic shoes. We all do. And they were designed for the astronauts by NASA.
Collision avoidance systems.
Yes.
We think about our firefighters and how much gear they need to carry.
But it's so much lighter now, because of NASA, and also the hoods that they can wear. Everything, so much of what NASA has accomplished and that we take as every day, the way temperatures are taken, pacemakers, all kinds of things, work on limbs. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
I feel your commitment to the organization, and I can only imagine, as my paper goes flying, how much.
Yes,
exactly.
It was lost in space.
How much.
Sorry, folks.
No, it's all good. How much you appreciate the receipt of the Exceptional Public Achievement Medal for outstanding talent in inspiring the public about space exploration from NASA.
Yes, and it happens to be hanging around my neck.
Exactly. It's like a gold medal.
Yes, it's a beautiful gold medal, and I'm absolutely thrilled about it. I don't have makeup on my hands, so I won't. I won't. But you can get a shot of my chest, shall we call it?
Yes. And what was so touching about the receipt of that award, when I read about it, you've received Tonys, you've received nominations by every major entertainment category,
yes.
and yet you said publicly that receiving the NASA award was the highest honor of my life.
Yes, I think so. It absolutely... I couldn't believe it when I got the envelope saying that they were going to do it. And
why?
You know, my family, for instance, has 5 stars on Hollywood Boulevard. 2 of them are mine, and there have been such lovely awards given to me, accolades. Thank you, for my work and for things which I have enjoyed doing very much, of course. But when this came through, I thought, oh. Can you believe it? To get an honor like this for doing something which I absolutely adore. It's so part of my gut, you know, just to be able to speak about NASA.
I can only congratulate you and thank you for what you are doing to open the minds, to unleash the imagination of not just children, but even big kids, grown-ups, big kids like myself. I would be remiss if I didn't speak with you about your storied career. What I am holding, if I may, this is a program from the Metropolitan Opera House, dated December 26, 1933. I hope the reflection's not too bad. But one of the names on here is June Lockhart.
Yes.
It's from the opening performance of Peter Ibbotson, which was an opera.
Yes. It was the first English sung opera. It was written by Deems Taylor. The music was by Deems Taylor. And I was studying ballet at the Metropolitan at the time, in New York, of course. And this was the first English sung opera. It opened the season, and that's why we were given a copy of the program on pink satin.
You can see it.
That's the original. So I thought you might get a kick out of seeing it.
What this means is that if I do the math, and I'm not that good at math, but I can figure this out.
That's right.
You have been working as a paid entertainer for 80 years.
Can you believe it? Yes.
80 years.
Yes.
Now, I would mention that we love Betty White like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
But you know what? I think you've been working longer than Betty White.
Yes, possibly. You do the math.
Yeah.
But, she's a dear.
Of course. Yeah. And I'm sure
and
a
you know,
friend
all
and
of her, these women who have been in the business, we have a certain collegiality.
Of course.
We're fond of each other. Our reunions in makeup rooms when we all show up to appear on a show together, it's really fun. It's loud and it's down and dirty, let me tell you.
We know that your NASA award was the highlight of your life.
Yes.
What's been the highlight of your professional career?
Well, I enjoyed everything while I was doing it.
I understand.
So there goes.
There goes. But is there a moment in time, you know, was it when you performed in 1948 and received the Tony for Outstanding Newcomer? Was it Lost in Space, for which you are extremely well known, or Lassie? Or is it
all of the above? Yes, I've had such extraordinary opportunities just drop in my lap, you know.
But there's some talent.
Well,
a little bit of talent there.
It's nice to be able to sort of rise to the occasion.
I want to briefly ask you about your father, who was a performer himself as well.
And my mother, Kathleen.
And your mother. How do you think they would feel if they knew that, sure, you got a Tony, but you received the NASA medal?
Oh, I think they'd be thrilled. My father was the judge on Miracle on 34th Street, for anybody who's watching. But also, every year at Christmas, they would show Dickens' Christmas Carol.
Right.
And my mother and father are Mr. and Mrs. Bob Cratchit, and that was my debut movie.
Wow.
I played Belinda in it. So, and of course, we'd been performing Christmas Carol at the home at our Christmas parties for years.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. She is June Lockhart. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition.
And you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.